Leading the Toyota 1000 Desert Race after day one were Franz Jabek Sr. and Jr. in the V-Motors Chenoweth. The pair have won the Toyota 1000 3 times and were looking for their 4th win. Hannes Hrobler and Richard Leek survived 2 punctures and a broken CV joint on the Nissan hardbody on day 2 of the event and were 2nd overall and the leaders in the production vehicle category after 500 kilometers of tough racing. Reigning Special Vehicle Co-Drivers champion Bucks Carolyn and Henny Testiga were only 2 seconds behind Hrobler and Leek and 3 seconds ahead of Carolyn's 2000 championship partner Shamir Variawa in the Kornbeek Jimco. Mere seconds separated the top crews after 500 kilometers of grueling racing. Botswana businessmen Atang Makakhaneni and Evan Hutchinson had a good run in the Hellman Logistics Jimco and finished the day 13 seconds behind Variawa. Last year's Toyota 1000 winners and the reigning production vehicle champions Neil Woolridge and Kenny Skolthammer had a good run the previous day in the Ford Ranger recently imported from the USA. The vehicle was well suited to the sandy desert conditions in Botswana. Many hours of development and testing paid off for the Petronas Isuzu team, which made its off-road debut this year. Former special vehicle exponents Mark Corbett and Juan Moore brought the vehicle home in a well-earned 7th place and 1st in Class D. Only 13 seconds behind the Isuzu were Freiburg Bombers Pitt Haasbroek and Christo Bosch in the Class D Castrol Toyota Land Cruiser. The pair had a torrid time this season, but this time around they showed their true potential. Production Vehicle Championship leaders Shumi van Vieren and co-driver Varney Kotzer had a troublesome run in the Castrol Toyota Land Cruiser. Electrical problems dropped them down the order and they ended up 9th. The Duplessis brothers, Harrod and Lawrence, had a steady run in the Porsche-powered Chenoweth to end the day in 10th spot and could be expected to put in a charge on the final leg. Father and daughter combo Nielsen Gala Eriksson made a rare appearance in a national championship off-road race and promptly took the lead in Class B in their Sandmaster. Reigning Class B champion Hill Nell trailed them by 12 minutes. Surprise leaders in Class E were Barberspan 500 organizer Jannie Visser and Christo van Nikak in their near-standard Toyota Hilux. There was much disappointment in the Castrol Toyota camp when multiple Toyota 1000 winner Api Reiniger retired early in the day.
He started racing when he was only 42 years old. He started off-road racing, but he was so keen and he was such a sort of icon to me and such a sort of a winning type of person that if he ever what he do, he just win. And you know, after his death, I decided that I'll keep on keeping this flame of the family to go on with the racing, and so he had quite a huge influence on myself. I would say the highlight in my career would be as far back as 1987 when I won the first national event, and that was in that days was also the desert race held in the Freiburg area. It was a highlight for me in the context that it was in front of my home crowd where I live, and that's the first national. And just after that, for the first time, I saw myself in different magazines, and that meant a lot to me. You know, I've always read of someone who's been a winner, and yeah, I see myself in magazines as a winner. And the next desert race that we won was in 1994 with Lucas Dreyer in Land Cruiser. 95 was the first time out with Robin Houghton here. Yes. We won that year, and it was a highlight for me that Robin was quite sort of a rookie in off-road, and I think it was a very special moment for him to win a race like this. 96 was the year that we were leading the race up to 100 k's from the finish. We lost our rear wheel drive and we had to finish the race only with front wheel drive. 97, 98 and 99 was 3 years in a row that we were winning. I would say 98 is very special in the way that we were chasing the first day Frans Schipek, that's not in our class, but we were chasing him from the start to the go. We were lying second. I decided to myself, there's no way that he's going to win me. And I started this chase from behind. It was only 50 k's further that I caught up with him. And it was a situation there, I think that he felt that he wouldn't let me pass. And after a couple of times that we on his tail and sort of whooped and tried to get past him, we at one stage, the adrenaline just pumped so much that we decided to just crash him from behind. And then he gave way and we won that race. That was also very special to me. The next year we also won that race. And I would say this race is very special to me in the context that, it suits our vehicle and the type of terrain. I'm very sort of in love with this type of terrain to race on.
Sunrise and the now customary early morning start for the off-road fraternity. Last minute checks and adjustments were the order of the day in a tension-filled environment.
Well, we got a 7-minute class lead today, 7.5 minutes on the next guy in our class. The overall lead we've got is about 5 minutes. We're not as worried about the overall lead as we are about our class lead, because the overall lead doesn't count so much for the championship points, whereas the class lead is where we're going to get our points from. So if the guys are going to come up behind us this morning, we're going to let them go. We don't want to break our car. We want to get to the end in as good a position as possible.
Frans Senior started the first loop and Junior would take over at the midway point, a proven race-winning strategy for the Schipeks. This year's Toyota 1000 was characterized by the largest spectator turnout in the history of the event, with the route lined with people for almost a kilometer.
Well, we're going to try and go a little bit faster today. We sorted a few minor problems. The other thing yesterday was to get the car to the halfway mark in one piece. And then this morning, it's a whole day of racing left, so we'll see. And I think we can maybe better our times today.
Krobler and Leek had a distinct advantage over those starting behind them. With the Schipeks 7 minutes ahead, the Nissan Bear would have a relatively dust-free run. Krobler took it easy through the corridor of enthusiastic spectators. The Schipeks had so far not put a wheel wrong and had posted the fastest time of all competitors between Marshall points up to the service point. Immaculate preparation and competent driving made for a winning combination. Shamir Variawa and Zahir Boranya had got by Carolyn in the Mitsubishi and Krobler in the Nissan, and were now chasing hard to close the gap on the Schipeks. Atang Makakhaneni and Evan Hutchinson had also got by Carolyn and Krobler and were running third on the road in the Hellman Logistics Jimco. They would later be forced to retire with mechanical problems. Krobler and Leek were concerned about the front differential on the Nissan hardbody and took it easier than they would have liked, but still held on to the lead in the production vehicle category. By contrast, Neil Woolridge and Kenny Skolthammer were mounting a charge in the V8-powered Ford Ranger. The vehicle was well suited to the sandy conditions and had so far not missed a beat.
Second one coming.
They couldn't afford to relax for 1 second because Bucks Carolyn and Henny Testiga were closing in fast in the ex-Dakar Mitsubishi Pajero. Greg Harvey and Boystone from Queenstown started in 13th place and had made up 6 places in the Queen Motor Spares Jimco, but hot on their heels were Gerard and Lawrence Duplessis in the Chinawoo. Mark Corbett and Ron Moore were still in control in Class D in the Petronas Isuzu, but were starting to come under pressure from their Class D rivals. One such rival was Pitt Hasbrook in the Castrol Toyota Land Cruiser, who was steadily closing in on the Isuzu. Another was Shumi van Vieren, who had also made up a number of places after losing more time with electrical problems. Here van Vieren was running in the dust of the V8 Vacation Vans Jeep crewed by Arthur and Scott Abraham. The Jeep boasts a sophisticated suspension that handled the rough conditions without any problems. Another breakdown for Shumi van Vieren and more valuable time lost. He certainly was having an up and down run. More drama as Grobler and Leek retire the Nissan with a seized front differential. The Jeep would also later retire when the gearbox cried enough. Hannes Grobler had difficulty masking his disappointment. Drama too for Harvey and Stone. They would eventually retire with suspension damage. 2 punctures and a broken front differential on the Barker Performance Products Land Rover dropped Cliff Barker and Malcolm Hubert way down in the placings. Barker fought back to eventually finish 3rd in Class T. John Weir-Smith and Jeff Minnett started the race in 83rd place and had moved up to 15th place at the overnight stop. The Kopanong Jimco wasn't in too good a shape with the gearbox and engine playing up. Hein Grobler and Parrot Prinsloo had dropped down the Class D rankings, but were fighting their way back into contention in the ballot value Nissan Hardbody. The reigning Class D champions would eventually move up to 2nd place in class behind leader Corbett. The 15-minute holding area at the service point gave crews a chance to relax before tackling the final 250-kilometer loop. As was to be expected, first into the holding area were the Chepex, who'd built up a 16-minute lead.
Well, we've had an awesome loop. I was looking forward to driving this loop this morning because my son drove it yesterday, and it was very nice. It was rough, and but it was, the path had been widened quite a bit yesterday. It was very thick when we went through first, and we had to open the road. But this morning it was a lot different, but sand's softer, so it's a lot more drag on the car. But we had a wonderful time. Bit of sun in the morning in the eyes, but otherwise very nice. No animals on the road, which is quite nice.
Next to arrive was Shamir Variawa and Zahir Badanya in the Cornbeek Jimco.
No.
It had been a long, fast haul to the service point.
Like I said yesterday, we're gonna, in the loop, we're gonna push as hard as we can. We passed most of the guys that were in front of us, and we knew that Franz Čepek was in front of us, and we were trying to push as hard as we can. Apparently we were 2 minutes something behind him, and then we had a blowout the last 10 Ks from him. So we'll be back on the road and push hard again to the finish.
The Ford Ranger of Woolridge and Skoldhammer was the first production vehicle to arrive. All seemed fine for the reigning production vehicle champions, but hot on their heels was Bucks Carolyn in the Mitsubishi Pajero, technically the leader on corrected time. Some words of encouragement for Woolridge from R.P. Reiniger.
Well, if you talk to me, my brother, I'm going to the bush. It's been pretty good. We had to push quite hard because we were a little bit behind. But hopefully we've made up a bit of time. We just a couple of seconds ahead of the Pajero. But yeah, now's our time when we go back. That's what we're looking forward to. That's what this car likes, this section back. This is what it didn't like. So if we can keep it like this, we'll be fine.
Hannes is out. It looks like he's got a gearbox problem. And then on the washboards, this Ford just outruns us. So we were going up and down like that, checking the sky, checking the sand, and then they got past us, and we just sort of like held on to them a bit. But now we've got to go home. So let's see if we can get home in first.
News arrived of Probler's retirement, and the Nissan team set about breaking camp.
Janelle went out yesterday with a broken CV joint, and Hannes today with a gearbox. We've got that news second hand, but he had a substantial lead, so he says in my piece of paper that's just been handed to me. So we can be happy about the performance, but that's how it goes. It's a tough race.
The Nissan pit crew rallied around Hein Grobler's Class D hard body, which was still in with a chance of winning the class and finishing in the top 5. The handling of the Class D and Class D Nissans had been greatly improved following a visit from Brett King from King Shocks in the USA. What were his thoughts on local off-road racing?
The entries are very good. I'm very, very surprised on that.